Alright guys, if you will bear with me today, we are going to do our first lesson on division using the flipping strategy. And by the flipping strategy, what I mean is we're going to start watching some lessons on video at home. Instead of doing homework, your homework is going to be to watch just the short video that has our lesson for the day in it. And I wanted to start the first one just to kind of as a test to see how we did. So our first lesson after fall break has to do with using basic facts to find quotients. And the facts that we're using are facts that you know, facts that you've done before, and all our dividends and divisors are going to be multiples of 10. So this is going to be something that's going to be fairly quick and fairly easy, but this is a good first lesson for us to try this flipping strategy. You'll notice on this first slide, I just have a basic division problem set up, showing you that the divisor is always the number that you're dividing by, and it's outside the house. The dividend is the number you're dividing into, and then the quotient is always your answer. The answer to any division problem is called a quotient. So as we move on, let's look at this first page that you might find if you looked in your book, called Using Patterns to Divide. How can patterns help you divide large multiples of 10? So we have an airplane, and it says a jet carries 18,000 passengers in 90 trips. The plane is full for each trip. How many passengers does the plane hold? And we know the operation here is to divide because we want to find how many passengers are on each plane trip. We know our answer can't be more than 18,000 passengers because our total for the whole slew of trips is 18,000 passengers. So we know that we need to divide that 18,000 into 90 trips. So in order to do that, you're going to do 18,000 divided by 90. So, let me get my pen ready here. Whoops. So we're going to see some of these little issues as we go, but it's okay. All right, so 18,000, that looks like a decimal, but that's a comma, divided by 90. And let's just go back and review what that means. 18,000 is the total number of passengers in all 90 of those trips. So in order to figure out how many passengers were on each trip, we have to divide that whole big number into 90 trips. Okay? So when you do that, let's look up at the top. Think of a basic fact that will help you solve that problem, 18,000 divided by 90. I think immediately of 18 divided by 9. And when we do this, we want to think about different multiples of 10. 180 divided by 90 would be 18 tens divided by 9 tens. And the answer to that would be 2. You could also think of multiples of 10. You could say 1800 or 1800 divided by 90 equals 180 tens divided by 9 tens, and that would give you 20. Or get all the way up to the original problem. 18,000 divided by 90 equals, that's 1800 tens divided by 9 tens, which gives you 200. So the pattern shows us that 18,000 divided by 90 is 200. So the jet can hold 200 people during each trip. How do we know? You can always go back and multiply to check your answer of a division problem. And here we know that 2 times 9 is 18. When we're multiplying, you're going to do your basic fact first. 2 times 9 is 18. And then you add your 3 zeros. Okay, So let's stop just a second before we move on and think about how we would write this if we were just using tens. So 1600 would be 160 tens divided by 20 would be 2 tens. Okay? So basically, when you're looking at how to break it down into tens, here's what you need to do. Go all the way over until you have that 10 left, because that's going to represent 10. 160 tens. Even though this is the ones place, we know there's 10 in 10. So down here, to write this using tens, this would be 240 tens divided by 20 tens. Okay, so remember the trick there when you're trying to make it into tens. Go all the way over till you get to that last zero, and it's that many tens. So 150 tens would be, 150 would be 15 tens. This is really hard to write on. Divided by 5 tens. Okay, so that's just another quick way to know how to break these numbers down into tens. When you're looking at multiples of 10, it's always good to know how to divide those down into different multiples of 10. So, let's look at this problem. A bakery sells muffins to local grocery stores in boxes that hold 20 muffins each. So kind of get in your head, there's a box of muffins. Think about those good Otis Spunkmeyer muffins. There are 20 muffins in a box. If 60 muffins were sold, how many boxes did they use? Okay, so we know there were 60 muffins altogether. And we know that the boxes are divided into boxes of 20. So our equation would be 60 divided by 20. 60 were sold. There's 20 in each box. So 60 divided by 20. Now, let me show you an easy way to divide powers of 10. Once again, we're looking for familiar facts. This time we're looking for division facts. 6 divided by 2 is a familiar division fact. 6 divided by 2 is what? 3. Now, here's the difference. When we divide powers of 10, remember when we multiplied the familiar fact first, and then we counted all the zeros in each factor in order to get the number of zeros in our product. In division, we're making the number smaller, so we're getting rid of zeros. So we can do what's called canceling zeros. As long as you're going on either side of the sign, you cancel out the zeros. These two zeros cancel out, which means our answer to 60 divided by 20 is 3. So think about that. If 60 muffins were sold, and we know there are 20 muffins in each box, 20, 40, 60, 3 boxes were all that were sold. Now let's make it a little tougher. If we know 600 muffins were sold, and we know each box of muffins has 20 in it, let's follow the same pattern. Find your familiar fact, 6 divided by 2, and we know that is 3. Now remember, because we're dividing, we're going to cancel our zeros out across the sign. This one cancels this one. Is there anything to cancel this 0? There's not. So that tells me that that 0 goes in my quotient. That is part of my answer. Okay? So if 600 muffins were sold, that means 30 boxes of muffins were sold, because 30 times 20 is 600. Now, 6,000. Let's clear this out so we can look at 6,000. 6,000 muffins were sold. That looks like that would be hard. But if you follow the pattern of dividing by powers of 10, it's not hard. 6,000 muffins were sold. We know there are 20 muffins in each box. That zero's bothering me. There we go. Same thing. Let's find our familiar fact. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Let's cancel because we're dividing. That one cancels that one. Is there anything to cancel these two over here? There's not. So that tells me that these two zeros belong in our quotient. So if 6,000 muffins were sold, that means 300 boxes of muffins were sold. Okay? So let's move on and practice a little bit. If I ask you to find the quotient for 9,000 divided by 300, the first thing you would do is you would come up here and say, is there a familiar fact in this problem? And there absolutely is. 9 divided by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And let's cancel. This one cancels this one. This one, whoops, made a weird mark. This one cancels this one. There's nothing to cancel that one, so the answer, or the zero, goes in my product. Okay? Let's try this one. 4,000 divided by 20. Do you see a familiar problem there? I see 4 divided by 2. Very simple division problem. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Let's start canceling. This one cancels this one. Uh-oh, there's nothing else to cancel, so those two zeros go in my quotient. 8,000 divided by 8 looks pretty simple looking at it. 8 divided by 8 is 1. There is nothing to cancel in this problem, so all three of those zeros go in my quotient. Now, here's a big one. Challenge. 10,000 divided by 40. Do you see a familiar problem in 10,000 divided by 40? Is 10 divided by 4 a fact that we know? Don't think so. What about 100 divided by 4? Think about when we've talked about quarters and knowing that there are 4 quarters in a dollar. 100 divided by 4 we know is 25. Okay, let's cancel. This one cancels this one. That leaves me 1 0. Remember, don't get caught up. You've already used this 0 when you did 100. So 10,000 divided by 40 equals 250. Okay? In these problems, you're using the same thing, but you're breaking them down somewhat to see what the tens are. And it really makes it easy to understand how these work when you look at them in tens. 210 divided by 30 is the same exact thing as saying 21 tens divided by 3 tens. And we know the answer to that is just merely 7. If you wanted to double check, you could come right here and do 21 divided by 3 is 7. Cancel, cancel. Down here, 480 divided by 60 is the same thing as saying 48 tens divided by 6 tens, which is merely 6 times 8 is 48. And check yourself. 48 divided by 6 is 8. Cancel, cancel. Now, 8,100 divided by 90. How many tens? If we were to write these into tens, how many would that be? Remember, you're going to look here and go all the way over to there. So it's 810 tens divided by 9 tens. So 81 divided by 9 is 9. There's nothing to cancel. So your answer is 90. Same thing here. 2,800 is the same thing as 280 tens divided by 7 tens. When you do your familiar problem, 28 divided by 7 is 4. There's nothing to cancel. So you bring that 0 over. Let's look here and make sure we're right. 28 divided by 7 is 4. This one cancels with this one, and it leaves us 1 0. So your answer is 40. Very simple if you break it down either way. I'm going to let you look at these problems for just a second. And what I would like you to do is pause the video and take about 2 minutes and do problems 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then we will come back and I will show you what the answers are. So go ahead and hit the pause button right now. Okay, hopefully that you have an 8 for 560 divided by 70. Hopefully you have a 6 for 360 divided by 60. Hopefully here you have, let's see, 60 divided by 5 is 12. We're going to cancel here, which cancels here. Leaves me with 1 0. Should have 120 here. This one, we have 24 divided by 6 is 4. We're going to cancel that 0 with this one, and that leaves me 200. So your answer here should be 400, and that does not look very nice, but that's 400. All right. Now, these problems are problems where you have to decide how to set them up. A truck travels 2,400 miles in 60 hours, going the same distance each hour. How many miles does the truck travel each hour? Well, if I know it travels 2,400 miles, and I know it goes 60 hours, that means I have to divide 2,400 by 60 to get each hour. I'm going to do 24 divided by 6 is 4. I'm going to cancel this one with this one, which leaves me 1 0, and my answer would be C. Next problem. A laborer put together 2,800 wheels in 70 hours, making the same number of wheels each hour. How many bike wheels does the laborer make each hour? Well, I know I can't make my answer more than 2,800 because 2,800 is the total that he puts together in 70 hours. What I have to do here is divide that big total of wheels he made by the 70 hours it took them to make. That will tell me how many he was able to make each hour. 28 divided by 7 is 4. This one cancels this one. I have 1 0 left. My answer is 40. And when you think about it, that makes sense. If you have 2,800 wheels, you could make about 40 an hour, or you could make 40 an hour if you worked for 70 hours. So always stop and ask yourself, does this problem make sense with what it's asking me? Davis earned $3,000 at the bookstore. If he worked for 50 weeks and earned the same amount of money each week, how much did he earn each week? Well, if you decided you were going to multiply here, that would make absolutely no sense because we know all he made is $3,000. He worked 50 hours a week and he earned the same amount of money each week. So we need to know how much he earned each week. My familiar fact I see here is 30 divided by 5, and the answer to that is 6. This 0 cancels this 0, and it leaves me 1 0. He made $60 every week that he worked. And when you think about it, that makes total sense. Cheryl earned $2,700 for babysitting her cousins. If she worked for 90 days and earned the same amount of money each day, how much did she earn per day? Okay, we know this is the total amount she earned, no more. She did that in 90 days. I need to know how much she made in one day or each day. My familiar fact is 27 divided by 9, which is 3. Cancel, cancel. There's 1 0 that doesn't have a partner to cancel with. Goes in my quotient. She made $30 a day. And we could always stop and multiply to make sure we're right. 90 days times $30 a day. 9 times 3 is 27. 1 2 1 2. And we know that we've gotten the right, we've gotten the right answer for that. Okay. The next problem, sorry, I went the wrong way. Tamika earned $3,600 working at a local farm. If she worked for 60 weeks and earned the same amount of money each week, how much did she earn per week? Well, if we multiplied, it would give us way more than $3,600, so that wouldn't make sense. We're dividing how much she made into the amount of weeks she worked. 36 divided by 6 is 6. Cancel, cancel. There's 1 0 left. I know that Tamika made $60 each week that she worked. Okay? Now, this page is always going to ask you to do something to show me that you have watched the lesson that was your homework. And on your notes page, there is a part 1, a part 2, and a part 3. On part 1, I would like for you now to just stop and in your own words, tell me what our learning goal was in this lesson. What were we trying to learn how to do as we walk through this lesson? And you can go ahead and pause the video while you write that down. In part 2, I would like for you to flip back through this video and pick a problem. Write one of the example problems I gave you and work it for me and show me exactly all the steps. Show me how you worked it. And go ahead and pause the video and do that now. Okay, now in part 3, I would simply like for you to write this problem in that box and solve it for me. Show me how you solve 56,000 divided by 80. You can go ahead and pause and do that now. Now, you have successfully made it through our first flipped lesson. Any questions that you may have, every day I want you to come prepared to ask me those questions at the beginning of class. We're going to be flipping our classroom and working on homework at school. At home, all you'll have to do for math class most of the time is watch a lesson and take a few notes. We'll be doing all of our homework in class so that if you have questions, I am here to help you as you work. Okay? All right. Good job.